going to turn it over to Pete Coogan, who is going to draw back the veil, as it were.
Yeah. These are the Wold Newton is sort of the field of parascholarship or literary archaeology that we're involved in, where it's you play this game. It's based upon the game that the Sherlockians came up with early in the last century. And so these are the sort of theory and methodology, just like if anybody's been to grad school, the first class you take is theory and methodology of whatever your discipline is. So this is our theory and methodology. And so these principles guide the interpretation of the text. In Daughter of Greystoke, Chuck used the principle of unverifiable evidence. So those letters from Michael D. Stone, he has evidence. It's just you can't verify it. I frequently find, things in libraries that are cataloged that lead me, give me this information. But if you go over there and look for it, you'll have a hard time finding it. Private archives, the principle of published proof, the great sheets I have known. That's an actual book that's out there that you could find, right? And so that's one of the things that we do is we find stuff in real historical books that connects in. The principle of the mysterious source. You saw that come up in a number. Everybody has a mysterious source who, in this case, someone who sold the letters. The principle of physical resemblance. That's one of the ways you find characters who are related to each other. They look like each other. They have gray eyes, black hair, these sorts of things. The principle of genetic personality. Modesty, Blaze, and Tarzan, they're both adventurous. And this comes out of the Wold Newton family from the meteor strike. Over the years, their descendants interbred and sort of the genetic reinforcement of certain physical types, physical abilities, and an adventurous personality. So those are the principles that guided Chuck. In Kiss of a Vampire, we see the principle of the narrative lacuna. The vampire's Dracula origin is declared to be false memory. So there's a space there to explain what happened. The Lady Rawhide miniseries was left uncompleted. So there's a space there to fill in what happened with our researchers. And the principle of extraordinary remarkability. Extraordinary people are remarkable. So if there's a real person out there who is famous and does a bunch of things, and they're adapted into fiction, they'll be adapted into fiction by more than one author. And so you see Vampirella, this adventurous, extraordinary person, gets remarked upon by different writers. The Lady Rawhide series, these vampire movies that were mentioned, Doctor Who television episodes, and the Vampirella comics. As for where the comic book companies, novelists, and so forth get their sources, you'll have to take that on the floor next time. What's in a name? The principle of coded names. Like Tarzan, Lord Greystoke. If you go try to find a Lord Greystoke, you're not going to find one in England. Because Edgar S. Burroughs used a code of Greystoke, but you can track it back. Farmer shows how to do that in the Tarzan biography. You can track it back. So the idea is that these names, because these are real people, they're not published under their real names, but there's a code that if you look at enough of these examples, you can actually figure out the code. The principle of inspiration relation. Richard Henry Savage was a real person, an actual real person. And he inspired the creation of Doc Savage, originally at Street Smith, the pulp publishers. And so in Wold Newtonry, if there's an inspiration there, then we figure they have to be related. So for instance, John Bell, who inspired Doyle to write Sherlock Holmes, there's some sort of connection there with Sherlock Holmes, but it varies from article to article. And then there's the principle of genetic personality. Sidney Savage, the Savage legacy is one of adventure. Out of time, principle of reconciliation. One of the differences between Wold Newtonry and, say, fan fiction is that in fan fiction, they expand on what's there. In Wold Newtonry, we take what's there and try to make it work together. So he had two things. Condé Nast owns the copyright to Doc Savage. They authorized the heritage of Doc Savage. So it must be based upon real things. It must be true. But Eagle Pemberley House has the authority of Philip Jose Farmer, who met Tarzan, right? Who found out all that information. So his must be true too. How can they both be true? Time travel. Principle of contradiction. Heritage, whatever remains, however improbable. Principle of contradiction. That's actually where the Sherlock Holmes in the game started. Is you reconcile contradiction. Where is Watson's wound? Is it over here? Or is it down here? What does Watson's wife think? So you have to write an article explaining that. Well, they contradict each other. Time travel reconciles the contradiction. Principle of fictionality. Doc Savage authorized the fictionalizing of the details of the adventure of the pulps, and there's letters published in the pulps. There's a letter in one issue published from Doc Savage saying how much he's disparaging the wild exaggeration in the pulp versions of his novels. So it's there, and so you don't have to take the stories as absolutely true. You can say that some details were fictionalized, some details were changed. Principle of mysterious source, and that's an invented source. He didn't actually, those beautiful newspaper clippings, that's all done on a computer. All right.
By our very talented John Small.
Who works in a newspaper, so he's able to do that. And the principle unverifiable evidence. Those newspaper articles exist, you just can't find them. And then the reporter whose employment can't be confirmed. And with that, there's our book, Myths of the Modern Age. We have little time for questions. And on the CDs, all of the original articles that are in the book, or the web versions of the articles, are on the CD, as well as I have a 93-page article there explaining Wold Newton as a